With this ring-drill, we'll look to connect back to the tutorials within the 3D section and also the live review section, and the idea of the kind of C-in value, the in-plane couple, and how that connects to then the lead arm angular velocity alongside areas such as vertical ground force, hand load point. To be very precise, how we can apply pressure into that grip, into that shaft as he moves to that transition and into downswing phase. So using a driver in the split hand position, so the kind of trail hand very much kind of palm upwards or supinated, and that kind of lead hand very much palm downwards pronated. So the hands are in essence in line with the shoulder joint. So that kind of split hand, trail hand underneath, lead hand on top in that split hand position. As you start to make some backswings through backswing, as you move in transition, as you move in downswing, it's in that very explosive, almost very kind of violent in some ways, in that kind of playful sense. As we start downwards, can we then really apply pressure down into that shaft? So really apply maximum force downwards through the grip, through the shaft. So we're almost applying the brakes, that kind of braking force almost instantaneously when the shaft gets to that horizontal parallel position. So once again, in that split hand position, as you make a movement through backswing, and then very explosively with that almost instantaneous immediate braking when that shaft is horizontal and parallel and downswing, almost applying the brake. So depending on what club you use, in this case it's a driver here, what you may see is because those forces are applied so abruptly and so quickly, and that braking force is almost immediate in transition into downswing, you can almost see the kind of club head vibrate slightly. So once again, as you move into transition, it's applying that pressure down. In many ways, can we get the shaft beneath that trail hip and almost close to, somewhat almost above that kind of trail knee? So when we apply that braking force, as you'll see here, my hands are low downwards. They put pressure down through the shaft, down into the grip, applying pressure down onto that club. So the hands are almost opposite and in line with, or just above, that kind of trail knee. So once again, as we rotate through backswing, apply that braking force downwards, pressure the shaft, put pressure into the handle, so the hands are just above that trail knee when that kind of shaft is in that horizontal position. And then to make it very relevant and start to apply then into impact, once again, as we get that pressure down into the shaft, then very slowly just start to rotate until the top of the club or the grip in essence points directly up and behind you. And in many ways then, just let that lead hand slide down to then kind of touch the right hand. In some ways that then starts to simulate and then reproduce the impact position. So once again, almost walking through this completely, split hand, trail hand beneath, lead hand on top, make that rotation back very quickly, that sudden explosive acceleration transition, pressure downwards, pressure into the shaft, force into the grip, force into the shaft. You actually see the club head here start to wobble and vibrate because of the forces being applied, and that immediate instantaneous braking when the shaft is horizontal, the hands are right knee beneath that right hip, and then once we have that braking force, start to then point the grip but up and behind you, and allow the lead hand to slide down to then touch that right hand. And in some ways then, start to live in that impact position for as long as really you need then. Start to make the connection, spend time living in and absorbing. What does it mean to move that way? What does it mean to me then to spend time in and around this perception of impact? So really absorb, spend time with, as much as we need to kind of create those dots, almost connect those dots, those synapses in the brain can start kind of reconnect and start to almost then fire slightly different and make the awareness of applying that pressure, applying that force, grip points up and behind us, slide the hands down, really changing the awareness of the perception of really how we move through that lead foot, how we move through that lead hip, how we then produce rotation. So the add-on then becomes to then reconnecting that kind of lead foot. As we start to then explore and really kind of adapt and evolve this, now as you rotate backwards, without elevating the rib cage, just start to allow that lead foot just to then move off the floor simultaneously with when we move the club backwards. So once again now, without elevating and really lifting up to that rib cage, let that lead foot lift as we rotate back. And then again, with almost equal intent, equal explosion, equal pressure, as we pressure the shaft downwards, actively stamp through that lead foot. What's vital is it's done very sequentially, that the lead foot stamps and makes connection with the floor before the shaft gets to horizontal. That braking force is really applied in that kind of horizontal parallel position. And once again, what's really important, almost the vital component of this drill, is we stamp and then brake, stamp and then brake, stamp and then brake, stamp and then brake, to start connect up then those ground reaction forces. So how much pressure, how much compression can we push down to that lead foot and ankle, into that lead knee, the extension up to that lead hip, at the same time as simultaneously we're applying pressure down into the handle, force into that grip, that lovely kind of push. We're pushing into the floor as we're pushing down onto the handle. So once again, the split hand, rotate back, lift, stamp and brake. Stamp and apply pressure downwards. Let that club head wobble, the hands just above right knee. And then grip behind us into that impact position and spend time absorbing as long as we need. Live in this position for as long as we can to then really connect back then. What does it mean to me then as far as to kind of produce and move into that impact position? So really connecting this back to those tutorials in the 3D section around that in-plane couple, the lead arm angular velocity, and then also the live session review, how the segments move, in this case the pelvis, the rotation, the braking force, even then kinematically through the thorax, the hand low point, really encouraging rotations through, for example, pelvis, thorax and neck. So really explore this drill, and also then, like we said, really connect back then to the tutorials in as far as the 3D review, and also then that 3D tutorial to then make this a much more meaningful, certainly intellectually. I said, why are we doing this? As far as applying pressure down, getting force into the handle, really then stamping to that lead foot, almost connected up then the education on the 3D data, almost the relevance, the meaningful context in many ways behind then that live session review, but then very practically and very pragmatically through this drill, how we can then certainly start to improve those movements and those values.